to the Other Girls Club podcast, the podcast where we chase joy, dissect pop culture, and try to understand the world and, most importantly, each other a bit better. I'm your host, Sophie Butler, and today I want to introduce a good friend of mine to the podcast. She's a plant-based queen of Instagram, an OG creator, founder of CAROUSE, a non-alcoholic spirit taking the market by storm, and most importantly, the daughter of my favourite lady in the world, Mama Sue. Everyone welcome Steph Elswood.
Thank you so much.
I feel like I need an audience to clap. Etty, give us a little clap.
Pending. It's coming.
Woo, Steph's here. Steph, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
How are you today?
No, I'm really good, thank you. I feel like the countdown to Christmas is here and I cannot wait.
I feel like we need to talk about that.
Christmas, I'm
it's
buzzing.
It's a big one. The first thing I want to ask you is, in true Other Girls Club podcast style, we're all about pop culture here.
Yeah.
What are you listening to right now?
The Wicked soundtrack.
Okay, good. I was hoping you were going to say that.
It's literally on repeat. I didn't let myself listen to it before seeing the film because I was like,
yep, good choice.
No spoilers. I don't want to know their vocal choices. Now I can't stop listening and I'm going to watch it again on Friday.
I feel like, right, I've got to work this weekend, and the promise I've made to myself, if I get through everything, I'm allowed to go see Wicked for the third time.
Well, you just cancel everything and get it all done.
You're like, just go anyway.
Just go anyway, yeah.
No delayed gratification. Just go. What is your favourite song on the soundtrack?
Oh, that's such a hard question. It depends whether or not it's with visual.
Oh, okay. Without visual.
Maybe I'm Not That Girl.
Oh, okay. Little tender moment.
Yeah, but with visual, Wizard and
I saw a remix on TikTok this morning.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, Ayami P?
Oh my God, I saw the exact same one.
You know what I'm going to say.
She was like, we need this mix. And then the DJ was like, I've got you. Mm-hmm. It was so good.
So just for viewers who have not seen it yet, although I feel like by the time this goes out, it's going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
It was Ayami P suggested someone make it. And then literally within like a day, a load of DJs were like, don't worry, babe, I've got you.
Yeah.
So it's the I'm not that girl. Oh, my singing debut on the pod. It's that bit. And then it goes something has changed within me. And then it goes into Beyonce's I'm that girl.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
I'm going to need it on Spotify, and that will be number one in my raps next year.
100%, yeah. When I heard also her vocal on the video, I was like, okay.
I know. So I hate that when you see some days do like a little subtle sing on TikTok. And I'm like, okay. Didn't realise everyone could sing but me. Jeez, if I could sing, I'd be the most unbearable. Like I was right. So I used to be a little bit of a theatre kid.
Obsessed.
I was unbearable without the talent. So can you imagine what it'd be like if I had God-given talent? I would just be doubly unbearable.
I feel like half of being a theatre kid though is just the ride or die passion. Mm-hmm. Like you just have to live, eat and breathe it.
You ride and die for the art.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, you need to see it. It's so good.
If you by some means have not seen Wicked yet, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm talking directly to the camera now. I feel like I'm doing a news announcement, and I'm like, emergency. You must go see Wicked. The main topic I want to talk to you about today is sobriety. Mm-hmm. Bit talking about being sober curious, and obviously the amazing brand that you founded and run. So you've been sober for about 5 years now, is that right?
5 years sober.
It's like half a decade.
I know.
It goes so quick.
I feel so old.
don't get me started on that. I'm having a bit of a late 20s crisis right now.
Oh my God, me too. On my 26th birthday, I mean, I'm 28 now, but on my 26th birthday, I cried to my partner and I said all my best years behind me. And he was like, you need to calm down.
They are not behind you. They are ahead of you. But what was it that motivated you to take that step into going sober?
Do you know what it was? I hadn't really heard of the term like sober curiosity. I kind of just knew in myself that I wasn't feeling right. And I'd gone through this whole journey of like wellness where I'd made so many changes in my life that I could notice when something was out of balance. And I just got with my boyfriend at the time and he was a pro rugby player. And every time we went out with the rugby boys, I would be like, well, obviously I'm going to drink exactly the same as these 6'2"
because they can drink.
They put alcohol away and like I'm one sip Steph at the best of times. So I was just drinking. I wouldn't say I was drinking every evening, but like after a game day or if there was a social or something, I would drink. And then I was waking up the next day with just like this pounding, impending doom, like
anxiety.
Yeah. What did I say? Who did I offend? And like, I'd say that I can get along with like boy humor and stuff. And like, I would probably do things drunk, that I would do sober. But when I've done them drunk and I can't maybe remember all of it. I'm like, I'm embarrassed. So I just wake up with this like pounding heart rate. And then sometimes that feeling of uncertainty would last for like the Sunday and the Monday and the Tuesday. Then I'd feel good on the Wednesday, fine on the Thursday, and then we'd go out drinking again on the Friday. Again. So I was in this vicious cycle that I just thought the common denominator here is alcohol. So what if I did all of the same things without alcohol? How would I feel? And then it probably took me about 9 months to come to that decision to actually take it completely away for a little while. And I was going to Bali at the time for 3 weeks with my boyfriend. And I was like, I'm not going to drink this whole time. Whenever I would usually have like a cocktail at sunset or a drink or something, I'm going to have a fresh coconut, come back and see how I feel. And I came back and felt...
how Bali? I'm going to have a fresh
literally,
coconut.
I was, a little flower in my hair and a fresh coconut on the beach. But I came back and felt amazing. And I was like, okay, is that just because I've just had a holiday of a lifetime with this hunk, or is it because of the alcohol? And then basically tried to replicate being sober in London and realised that I felt so much better, and haven't really looked back since.
That's amazing, isn't it? It's like, I think it's so good though that you had that intuition to find the common denominator.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll go about my life and I'll be like, oh, I feel shit today. And I'm like sitting there and then I'll have to force myself to go through the list, go, have you drank water? Okay, have you eaten enough? Oh, okay. How much sleep? You had 2 hours sleep. Okay, well, yeah.
Yeah,
but I
it's
think
so true.
Having that intuition to like go through the list and be like, that is the common denominator. I really cut back my drinking this year, which wherever I say it, people have this idea that I drink. Talking to the camera, I do not drink all the time. I think because
Can we go back to the lockdown lives, because that was some of my favourite times.
I used to do like was it Prosecco Saturdays?
I can't remember what it was, but I was hooked.
I'd have like a little bit of Prosecco, and I'd do like the Q&A box
Yeah.
where I would get people to tell me their like deepest, darkest secret. And
it got juicy. It was so good.
There was like, I'm sitting on some bad boy information.
Yeah.
I'd be looking at those boxes like, could ruin a bitch or two with this, but it was all good fun. But I feel like, because I go out a lot, like I go out a lot, I go to different like shows and whatever like that, so I feel like that culture's got a lot of drinking around it. But this year I really cut back my drinking. I did Reading Festival completely sober.
Did you? Mm-hmm. How did you find that?
I haven't spoken to anyone about this, but like, yeah, I did Reading Festival completely sober. And I found absolutely fine. Like the main reason I didn't drink is because I had really cut back my alcohol up until that point. I did my holiday semi-sober in the sense that I had drinks, but I'd never got drunk. I didn't even get tipsy. So on holiday in July, I would have like a sangria with lunch and then maybe a sangria with dinner.
Yeah.
So that's like 2 drinks max. And then I would cut myself off and like, for someone who's sober, that's probably like, you're still drinking, but like it was an all inclusive. So I was like, right.
Oh my God, that's where you make your money back.
Well, don't worry, I made it back in Fanta Lemon.
Okay, good.
I made it back in Fanta Lemon and tiramisu. That one night there was tiramisu, I was like, load me up. But yeah, I thought I just really cut back my alcohol this year. But we're doing Reading Festival sober and doing the Brat Tour sober was definitely the most interesting experience. I had so much fun. Yeah. Reading was genuinely the best weekend of like my life in general. But the reason I thought, right, I'm going to do this sober was because I had my own show at Reading on the Sunday.
Oh my God, of course.
And I was like, I don't want to drink. If I drink on the Friday, drink on the Saturday, I'll probably be fine on the Sunday, but I don't want to take the risk of it impacting my nerves. And I had to weigh up is it really worth drinking? And I was like, that's not. But this show is more important. It's the most important thing I've ever done at that point in my life. So I was like, that has to take precedent. But like, it was fine. But my friends were so great about it. Like I remember one of my best friends, Jake, he called me like the night before and he was like, are you drinking at Reading? Because I know you've like not been like drinking. I was like, no, I'm not going to drink. And he was like, okay, I'm going to pick you up a 4-pack of Monster.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Because like he knew that like, I love me a little energy drink. And I think just that idea of like having something, like an alternative, he was like, yeah. And my friends were so much better about it than I thought they were going to be. They all drank. They had a great time. But like, yeah, doing Reading Festival sober is something I never thought like I would do.
I feel like you can get drunk off of people's energy as well.
And music.
Yes, especially live music, for sure.
Drinking culture is so heavy in the UK.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't really realise how heavy it was till I spoke to other people from like different countries. And I was like, oh, we drink a lot over here. Like it just is quite different in the UK. Do you think that culture is changing at all?
I think people are questioning it more. I don't know if it's gonna, like, we're built on pub culture, do you know what I mean? And I think some of our drinking games are based on the American drinking games, but their beer is like half our percentage, so they can obviously put away a lot more. I think people are questioning drinking habits and how we socialise a lot more, especially in our age demographic. I would say it depends who I speak to. Like if someone asks me if I'm having a drink and why I'm not drinking, I really judge the situation by situation, because I know if someone older who is like deep in that beer, wine, pub culture, who drinks most evenings, gin and tonic every night, and I was like, oh, alcohol makes me a bit anxious, they'd probably be like, little pussy. Like they're just, do you know what I mean? Snowflake. Do you know what I mean? They'd be like, oh God, another snowflake. Whereas if I spoke to someone of our age who maybe has gone out a couple of nights and been like, oh my God, I feel awful the next day. And I say, oh, my mental health was really bad, so I actually decided to stop. It's so interesting how you see this shift, because the difference that I felt when I say I'm not drinking tonight versus I am sober is worlds apart. If I say, oh, I'm not drinking tonight, peer pressure is instant. Whereas if I say I'm sober and haven't drunk for 5 years, people are so inquisitive and they're like, oh, really interesting. I've actually thought about this. And I think people, there's more of a buzz and more conversation around this topic, which I think is slowly shifting people's perceptions. Whether or not it will then be an action that they take remains to be seen. But I think that there is this kind of ongoing noise around it. And it's exciting that we're challenging things that have been the social norm for so long.
I think it's good that people are just challenging it. If I think back to a few years ago, I wouldn't have thought that I was someone who needed to cut back alcohol. And the thing is, the truth is, I didn't need to cut back my alcohol. Like, I was in a position in my life where my alcohol intake wasn't impacting my health. It wasn't impacting like too much of like my lifestyle. I would go out, maybe like twice a month, something like that. But even I was like, okay, I might just look at my alcohol intake and like, what are the alternatives and like, how can that benefit me in certain situations? I think it's good that people are now, even if they're not going completely sober like yourself, they're thinking, okay, can I cut back my alcohol and will that do me any good? Or I can go have fun still without drinking. I think that's a big thing, because I think some people will be like, oh, well, I'm not going to drink, so I'm not going to go out. Whereas like now people might be like, oh, I'll go out, I'll still go out and have fun, but I'm not going to drink. I think that's a good thing as well, that I love seeing that you talk about, is like, you still go out, you still have fun. Because people have this idea of like being the life of the party is you drink the most at the party, and that's just not true. It's especially not anymore.
I definitely think when I first went sober, I went the other way. I felt like I was so adamant that I didn't want my friends to stop inviting me out, that I would stay out and be the last one on the dance floor. And even if my friends that were drinking were like, oh, I'm leaving, I'd be like, oh, don't be boring, even though I was sober. And I felt like I had to prove myself as still being this fun person. Whereas now I am not ashamed to smoke bomb and leave before midnight. Like if I'm tired, I've been here for 2 hours, we've had lovely chats, I'm a go. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like I've now learnt the boundaries and like respect my time enough, because I would sometimes wake up, I'd get home at like 4 a.m, wake up and feel hungover, having not had a drop of alcohol because I was just so tired. Or like make such poor choices after 2 a.m. with like food or like whatever I decided to do. So now I'm like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to spend time with my friends, but also if I want to leave, that's okay. There's no pressure to prove myself to anyone. Because
that's the thing, going out with your friends is meant to be fun. If you find like you're going out with your friends and you've had like fun for maybe like 5 hours or whatever it is, however, you know, tired you are that night, but then you think, I don't want to be here anymore, I'd rather be in my bed. Like I would so much rather my friends be like, oh, okay, I'm going to come out, but I'm only going to stay for a couple of hours because I'm tired. Like I don't want any of my friends like be in the situation ever where they're like, I'd much rather, I need sleep. Like I feel like that, I feel we've got really good at that in our generation of like communicating that boundary and doing things less out of obligation and more because like we actually want to do them. So I haven't been to any of them, but me and my friends are like looking at going, they do like day raves in London now. I know my physio was talking about it because she was like, her friend went, my physio, she was like, my friend went and she was like home in bed by 10 p.m.
That is the dream. That is, honestly, I can't remember who it was that did the tweet about music gigs should start at like 3 p.m. so everyone's home by 6.
Do you remember when Little Mix were really big and obviously they had a really young fan base, so they used to do like matinees almost?
That would be the dream. Like I'd love to go and watch a music gig, have dinner and then be in bed by 9.
Oh, that's the dream, isn't it?
But I'm selling myself as being a really sober, boring person. But
you're like, no, I'm fun.
I'm fun, I promise.
But that is a bit of like a struggle, isn't it? Of like, I get wondering about what other people are thinking and kind of like other people's impressions and like peer pressure and stuff like that. So what would you advise people if they're thinking about they're sober curious or thinking about going sober or just cutting back in general and seeing what that looks like for them? If they're worried about what people will think, what is your sort of general advice and like how did you navigate that?
It's so easy for me to sit here 5 years on and speak from a person with 5 years experience versus like how difficult I found it in maybe the first 3 to 6 months, especially if so many of your friendships are built around drinking culture. Out. Yeah, like if I know there's loads of people that I drifted from because I realised the only thing we had in common was alcohol, and I think you have to be almost mentally prepared for that. But one thing I would say is if you've got a friendship group that is like quite big on the drinking scene, is take out the ringleader, whoever is the most vocal in a group situation, to be like, oh, don't be boring, message them before the event, because it can be really daunting in an event. Like if you're at the pub or something, be like, oh, I'm not drinking, and then suddenly there's this like mass kind of what's the word I'm looking for, like culture of people just being like, oh come on, like mob culture, being like, come on, you always drink, da, 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 da. So if you take out the ringleader and say, look, I'm not drinking tonight, please can you respect that? Like I'd really appreciate your support. Yeah. And then it's easier. Like sometimes when I didn't want to tell the group that I wasn't drinking, when I was still kind of making the decision, I'd go up to the bar and I'd like whisper in the bartender's ear and I'd be like, hi, can I just have an elderflower tonic, but can you make it look like a gin? Like really go above and beyond to make it look like a gin. And they kind of looked at me like, okay, but then you'd come back and no one knows anyway.
It's given like speakeasy vibes.
Yeah,
it's like the opposite. Do you remember the prohibition when alcohol was like illegal? Now you're like, please make it look alcoholic, please.
And I just think just being honest, and I used to have drinks before going out because I was nervous. Like a lot of my drinking stemmed from being nervous and just wanting to be accepted thinking that I could only be funny if I was a little bit drunk or whatever. So like now my pre-drinks, or like when I first went sober, my pre-drinks was me talking to myself, being like, you can go out and be yourself without the booze. So I think, definitely messaging people before, setting your intentions before, working on your self-worth. I know that sounds so disconnected from just like one night out, but like I knew that my friends, or I would like to think that my friends like me for me, not because of my drinking habits. Yeah. And I know that I now know that in the friendship circles I move in, I bring enough to the table that they don't need me to drink.
That's such a big thing.
And I think documenting how you're feeling before going out and also the days after, like waking up without a hangover, you feel so smug. And everyone else is dying in bed, having made poor choices, probably spent way more on a taxi than they should have, or a kebab that they fell asleep with on their chest. Like there's just so many things that are positive for me for not drinking, and writing a list of those, because then if you ever are tempted to go out and have a drink, but you know that not drinking is better for you, you can read back that list and be like, okay, well, if I drink, I'm not going to feel this or this. Yeah. And I think constantly checking in with yourself definitely helps that.
I think that problem of like drinking because you feel nervous or pre-drinking, I literally just brought back so many memories as you were saying that, as me like a terrified little uni student, because I was when I think about what I was like at uni, it is like chalk and cheese. Like I was so insecure, so nervous, like, and even by second year I got a bit more confident, but I was still like just not happy in myself. And pre-drinking was literally like putting a mask on. Yeah. It was actually like masking, and I would drink so much at pre-drinks, and then I'd go on this night out and I'd drink so much, and like I would think, oh good, like, and I'm going out and I'm being fun because I'm being confident now, and because I'm like dancing and having fun. And I used to think like, right, I would drink to like get to that point to be confident that people like me, whereas now like I can go on holiday, have 1 or 2 drinks, not even get tipsy, and my friends, I hope, I'm looking at the camera like, you better have a great time with me. Or like I can go to Reading Festival. I can like, it was such a big moment for me to be able to go to Reading Festival and like have this amazing time with my friends and do a show and have people come to my show and enjoy my show. And because I was enough sober on the stage, like such a big, when I think about like 10 years ago, I would never ever have imagined doing that. But like drinking culture at uni is so different. We used to get drunk in between lectures.
Did you?
Yeah, I remember there was one particular day, if any of my lecturers follow me, no we didn't, but we there was one particular day, it was a Monday in second year, and we had like a 4-hour gap between lectures. And what did we do? Did we go to the library? No, we went to the pub because we had a pub on campus, and we used to literally get like a meal, get like a sandwich and stuff, and then we would just drink in between lectures. And I remember sitting through my like 4 p.m. lecture at uni, just pissed most weeks. And I'm like, why did you do that? That's not normal behaviour.
It's so true though. Like even when I was at Performing Arts College at like the similar age you'd go to uni, you'd think, oh, your body's a temple, you're training to be a performer, you're in ballet at 8 a.m. every morning. No, so many of us would just go out midweek and get absolutely obliterated. And it just makes no sense. I think it's at that age, like you're finally allowed to do it legally and going out and exploring. And there's part of me that is very grateful for those times because I almost had to learn going the other way to pull it back.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like I do have lots of very fond memories from that time, but I'm just very grateful for the choices that I make now and what has led me to being where I am now. Yeah,
I think that's important, isn't it? I can look back on those times at uni and I think, some days I didn't make great decisions, I wouldn't make them again. I don't regret 99.9% of the choices that I've made though, because they brought me to where I am now. And like, you have to learn
100%.
And you did what you I said this in the last podcast, I couldn't get it right. It was like, you did what you did with the best that you had.
Yeah.
And like, now you know better and you can like continue that exploration of making different choices. But I wanted to go back to like the peer pressure sort of like conversation, because it's coming up to Christmas.
Yeah.
Obviously a huge like alcohol time. Thinking about my intentions, because you said about setting intentions for Christmas. My intentions for Christmas is I want to enjoy my Bucks Fizz.
Yeah.
I want to have a glass of red wine in the evening, and I want to keep it to that. So that's my intentions for Christmas. Is I know some people will probably, want to drink a lot. Some people might, like me, want to cut back from normal how much, and some people might still be totally sober at Christmas. It's so varied on people's like intentions and what they want to do. But what would you say to people approaching this time where it is such a nerve-wracking time when you're thinking about sobriety and thinking about alcohol, like just navigating that Christmas period at all? Do you find it nerve-wracking? Did you find it nerve-wracking when you first started?
I don't think I found it nerve-wracking when I first started or now, but I do understand why people do, especially because Christmas can be so focused around family, and families are difficult, right? Like all of your relatives in one room, and the chances of you getting on with every single one are very slim. And I think that's more normal than like these big happy families that everyone thinks everyone has. And it can be really hard, especially if you've got someone in your family that constantly like negs you or like has these side comments. Sometimes drinking can be an escape from that and can kind of lessen the hurt of things that come with that. So I fully understand why people may need to drink to get through that day. Like, fully get it. And I think that's something that I would advise people on, is like, what makes you uncomfortable at Christmas that could lead you to drinking, and understanding your triggers. And that is an ongoing process that maybe might take longer than this is going out a week before Christmas, right? Than a week. But I think it's just good to do in general, to be like, okay, why do I reach for a drink? Is it for confidence? Is it for avoidance? Is it because it gives me energy? Is it because I like the taste? There's so many different reasons. And I think once you've identified that, then you can find out what the solution or the preventative is. Yeah. And like you said, you might just want a handful of drinks. Some people can find that quite hard if they've got an all or nothing personality, especially because alcohol affects the part of your brain that makes decisions.
Of course.
So you can go into it being like, I want to have one, and then suddenly you're like 4 bottles of wine down and you're doing Baileys at your uncle's belly button. Like there's
is that from experience? I don't know where that came from. A bit too softly on the tongue.
Where did that come from? That has absolutely never happened, and I feel like I'm gonna get a panic rash. But anyway, just that's what I mean. Like you need to know yourself so much in this journey, but I think that's with anything, like learning more about yourself every day, every year.
And I feel like the longer you do it, the easier that gets, right?
Yeah, I think so. And just there's so much that we do unconsciously on a daily basis. So like bringing consciousness to all of your decisions is important. Like when I was having 4 coffees a day, I was like, why do I constantly feel like I'm going to war and like on edge because of the caffeine? Like you just constantly have to ask yourself these questions. Or like when I was going to bed at 2 a.m. because I was getting locked in a TikTok hole, but because I'm laughing, I'm like, this is good for me because I'm enjoying
I'm getting the quick good chemicals.
Yeah. And I've built my For You page brick by brick. Like everything I see is sensational. Yeah, literally. But I think then once you've identified that, like I said, you can then build further coping mechanisms. So if it's like you like the taste of alcohol, finding alternatives that you like, or if it's because you're worried about, it's so hard when it's so individual, but like family members and stuff, what can you do to pacify them, to avoid them, to just not be sat with them one-on-one, or just to brush off the comments that they make, and just go into that situation prepared for whatever might happen. It's so easy in these conversations. For me as a sober person, I've gone 100% cold turkey, right? That can be a lot of pressure, and I think I have an all or nothing personality, and I've chosen nothing. You can still try to reduce.
I mean, like for me, but I think it's very different as well. Like, it may be important for me to note that, like, I didn't have to reduce my alcohol. I didn't have to cut out my alcohol. Whereas obviously there are some people who, being sober, carry such a weight of, you know, if it's because of mental health, it's because it's an addiction. And that is I think totally different. And that is such a sensitive, like, delicate scenario. And I think, like, it's important for me to note that, like, I'm doing it because I'm curious about it. And I think, like, in some scenarios, like for me, Reading, it ended up being the better thing. On holiday, it ended up being the better thing. And so I'm like, okay, I'm curious to where I can take this. So I've set my intentions for Christmas. I think that's the difference for me, where I'm like, okay, I know that I don't need to cut this out completely. I know what I like. I know why I like it. And I know my limits now. I know I can have one glass, and I know I can leave it at one glass. Whereas before I tried it out a few times, I might be like, oh, I don't know if I can just leave it at one glass. But I've almost like tried and tested it now. And I've like had that practice of like getting to know myself and my relationship with alcohol more. I feel like more confident in saying I can just have one. Whereas I think it's a bit of a joke, isn't it? Where you say you have one and then you never just have one.
No, it's so true. And I can't remember what interview I watched, but it was a celebrity on a talk show speaking about playing the tape forward. So say, for example, you are someone that can't just have one and you end up drinking it to excess and it ruins your next day. And I actually love Boxing Day more than Christmas Day.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, all my God, all the leftovers, little sandwich.
And also it's just the core. Me and my dad call them the main cast family.
Yeah, that is so true. Or like the fun cousins that couldn't make Christmas Day then end up coming and then you play games. I just love Boxing Day. And like, say, for example, you are someone that would drink a lot on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and then it would ruin your Boxing Day, for example. Like, before you start drinking, play the tape forward and be like, where do I want my tomorrow to be? Because that might stop you from taking the first drink. And I think turning up with options, like there's so many on the market now, whether it's soft drink alternatives, cocktail alternatives, wine, we're still getting there with wine, but like Prosecco alternatives, whatever it might be. Like, I used to love Bucks Fizz as well. We used to start drinking at breakfast. Bagels and Bucks Fizz was like our morning tradition. So now I have like Prosecco mixed with orange juice.
Talk to me about CAROUSE.
Okay, yes. So that is my non-alcoholic spirit brand. And that actually that was kind of a passion project in lockdown. So, you know, around the time when everyone was on Zoom, getting drunk on Zoom quizzes. There was nothing at that time that I wanted to reach for, and I was envious that everyone had something to drink that wasn't just water. And everything that was on the market that was a non-alcoholic spirit was very botanical, very floral, and probably tailored to an older demographic, like the 40s to 60s, that are probably drinking in excess, that wanted something that replicated a gin or a vodka or something like that. And I'd not drunk at that time for, I want to say, about a year. And I wanted something that not only tasted delicious, but you know when you turn up somewhere and you buy someone a beautiful bottle of gin or a beautiful bottle of champagne,
and it's
like a moment.
That ambiance to it.
And it's like premium, it feels luxury. It's not just a 7-Up out of a can. Do you know what I mean? And there was nothing like that. So I just kept thinking, someone should design a non-alcoholic spirit that feels premium and luxury and actually tastes nice, because I'm not sure if you've tried many on the market, but if you drink them on their own, they taste like arsehole. And like, you have to mix them with fruit juice and soft drinks to get them to taste nice. So I'm like, why don't I just have a fruit juice or a soft drink? So I was like, they should design something that tastes nice on the rocks, or with just something simple like a soda water, but also could be mixed into a cocktail. And then in the kind of YouTube gaming space, people were drinking these ready-to-drink energy drinks that were packed full of nootropic and adaptogenic ingredients. So like, you may have seen the huge rise in CBD drinks and products. And there's also these plant-based extracts that can help you feel more calm, help your body adapt to stress, or make you feel more alert with cognitive function. And I was like, oh my God, they should be fused together into a non-alcoholic spirit, because imagine you're not drinking alcohol, but you still have a drink that makes you feel calm, like a red wine does on a Friday night.
Oh, yeah.
Or you have a drink that makes you feel a little bit zesty before a night out, but there's no alcohol in it. So then I just deep dived. I basically spent ages on Google, like how to start a drinks brand. Where can I start a drinks brand? Synonym for, like, all of these things. And just became obsessed. I know I've mentioned before I've got like an all or nothing personality, but I just became obsessed with the idea of building this brand because it was something that I needed so much.
Yeah.
And I built it for completely selfish reasons. But this was in 2021. The idea and the goal was to launch in 2022 because I was doing all virtual recipe testing, because obviously we were in lockdown and stuff, where a recipe developer would make it in their kitchen, post me the bottles, I would taste it with my family, send back like things that I wanted changing and stuff. Anyway, looked to launch it in 2022. Then there was a global shortage of glass that I wouldn't have known about had I not have been in the industry. So we wanted to be a premium bottle glass drink and could not source bottles for love nor money. So everything got pushed back. We managed to launch in 2023. Did a soft launch in June, did a launch party at Ministry of Sound in collaboration with my friend Millie, which was amazing. And then kind of, I'd say our official launch was last sober October. Yeah. We've been going for almost, year and a half now. And I absolutely love it. And there's just so many things within the brand that I'm obsessed with. Like the name itself is a spin-off of an old English word, CAROUSE, which means a noisy, lively drinking party.
Love that.
And I just thought I really want people to feel like they can go out, have fun, be themselves without alcohol. And that's why the kind of figure on the bottle is this non-binary dancing figure into a martini glass to show like, go out, be yourself with a drink in hand, but it doesn't have to be alcohol.
I'll tell you why I love it.
Go on.
It was very medieval.
Yes.
And I'm a sucker for anything that gives me like House of Dragon.
Well, in one of the first episodes of the first series of House of Dragon, they say the word carousing so many times, and every time it happened, like my boyfriend would be like, yes,
you're like, free
so
promo.
Yeah. So we spun the pronunciation of it to be more like no booze, CAROUSE, but that's the origin of the name and the branding. And we've got 2 flavors in the range. So one was completely designed around making you feel more calm and at ease, which is Drift, and that's like summer fruits. I'd say it's more of like a Pimsy, fruitier drink. And then we have Uplift, which was designed to make you feel more alert, and that's got citrus fruits, ginger, it's got chili, so it makes you feel warm down the back of the throat. And it's got guarana, maca, ginkgo biloba, which have loads of key benefits in that I can't get into because I would just be on a passion on a little soapbox.
It's interesting you going through the ingredients list because I have had CAROUSE.
Yeah.
It was at the Bee Creator Awards last year.
Yes.
It was at the bar and I remember having it there. And it's so funny you listing it now and you're talking about the ingredients and like what they do. And I'm like, oh yeah, it did feel like that because I don't run the drinks brand. I don't know much about ingredients and stuff like that. But hearing you say the ingredients and saying what they do, I'm like, oh yeah, I've experienced that. I felt that.
Yeah. And I just find it so fascinating in this whole space. And it's a time in most people's lives when they're questioning what they're putting in their body, right? And I feel like especially in London, we live in a bit of a hub of people questioning wellness and what that actually means and how it works for them and how it's so individual and unique to everyone's needs. But for me, I want to know what I'm putting in my body. And so many of these non-alcoholic spirits were full of like synthetic ingredients that I didn't understand, and they were basically like flavoured water but charging you so much money. So I was like, how can we make this more health conscious, more natural, more extract based, more like vegan and all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just absolutely love it. I trained in musical theatre, have no background in food or beverage or production. So I very much had to learn on the job, but it's been such a challenge that when I always say that there's getting to A to B, right? Most people would just walk in a straight line. I didn't have the map for that straight line, so it's probably taken me so much longer to get from A to B, but it's so worthwhile and so fulfilling because I've learned so much.
Yeah.
And I'm just loving the journey.
I feel like why it probably feels so rewarding for you as well. Me just being a psychologist and telling you why. I'll tell you why you feel that way. But I think it's because you had a problem like in your life, or like you saw there was a need and you just filled it. So it's almost like you probably feel like you're not selling a product, you're selling a solution, because you're like, I wanted this. I've created the thing that I wanted. So rather than just creating the product and then hoping there's a demand there, you were like, I know there's a demand there because it's what I needed, it's what I wanted.
Yeah.
But What is it like founding this brand? Because I can imagine like having a physical product of any kind is hard to found and to, you know, promote that and like, you know, get that out into the world. But once you get into the world of drinks and food and that, it is a whole other ball game, and there is so much involved. Doing that as a young woman, what has that been like?
I'd say the drinks industry in the kind of spirit space especially is very male dominated. Well, trade shows and things like that with alcohol-based drinks as well. There's just men everywhere. It's lovely. There's loads of attractive men walking around. Sorry, Liz. But it can be hard as a young female. And one of the first tasting days that we went to, I actually took my uncle who was on a sabbatical, and he's a big drinker. And I was like, if he likes these flavours, we can sell it to anyone. So I was like, he's a really good person to take with me. But obviously he's a middle-aged man in a suit. He turns up to the meeting and all questions were directed to him in the early stages of this meeting. And I was kind of just sat there like, I'm not offended by it. I was just like, it is what it is. It's generations and history leading to this point, people believing that the person with the business is probably the middle-aged man. But it was actually my uncle that turned to them and said, sorry, why are you asking me all these questions? I'm just here for a fun day out. Like, you need to speak to her. And then everyone kind of looked at me and they were like, oh, sorry. And like, they didn't mean any harm by it at all. But it was just that perception of people expecting it to be someone different behind it, which I found really interesting. And it's definitely taken me a lot to process to find my voice. Like, I think I'm quite a person that, even in auditions when I was training to be in musical theatre and stuff, I'm very much like, oh no, after you go first. Like, oh, you stand in front of me, that's fine. Whereas now I'm just trying to learn to use my voice more and be like, no, this is not okay. This is what I want. And especially, like you said, I'd found this solution that I'm selling. I'm so passionate about it. My name is behind it. My finances are behind it. My passion is behind it. I'm not going to take mediocre for an answer. Yeah. So when I want something changed or finalised or perfected or whatever, I've built so much confidence in this more business space where I step forward, I stand tall and I make sure my voice is heard, which as a journey has been really rewarding as well.
You're known as, I know you don't really go by this anymore, but you are started off as Healthy Chef Steph.
Yes.
That was your sort of breakthrough into it's funny now when people bring you up, people see you on my stories like, oh, it's Healthy Chef Steph. And I have to stop and be like, oh yes, Steph. that was your name on socials. And obviously being sober is now a big part of who you are and, you know, like what you post about. But I feel like just approaching a healthy lifestyle and thinking about your life, being conscious of your lifestyle is really all what your platform's about. And a big part of that, I think, is also you being plant-based.
Yes.
And you've spoken before about your relationship with food and how I think one of the reasons why you probably communicate where you are now in your relationship with your healthy lifestyle is because you've come from a place of not having such a great relationship with food. Would you be comfortable talking about that at all?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I first became aware of food being my enemy when I was about 14, so it goes back quite a long time, and I struggled on and off. That sounded like I was going to cry, I swear I'm not. I struggled with an eating disorder from the age of 14 probably until I was about 21, 22, and that's actually why I started Healthy Chef Steph as a page, because I had my own private platform that I was just posting pictures of food on, and all of my friends at college were like, babe, why are you posting avocado toast? Just post a selfie. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll set up a separate page for food and like documenting my recovery and stuff. And then that seemed to take off and has ended up growing into something that I couldn't have even dreamed of back then. And I've been posting online now for almost 10 years. And I genuinely started as a food page, as this like lost teenager trying to recover from an eating disorder. And I was met with such kindness from the internet that I've just always wanted to give that back. And I just feel so in debt to the first few 100,000 people that followed me, because they literally changed my entire life. And it's got me to a place now where I've been able to launch brands and have incredible experiences and meet people like you and just build this life for myself that I didn't think I was worthy of back then. My eating disorder to me was a form of self-harm, because I thought I had this whole process in my mind that I was good but not great. Like I was never going to be the greatest at anything, and I just had to punish myself for not being perfect or brilliant or clever enough or good enough the whole time. And it was like such a form of control that then healing that relationship with food has led to so much greatness that I just want to shout about that all the time.
Yeah. And it's such a huge thing. I think to anyone who's never suffered with an eating disorder, or even, you know, not like a diagnosed eating disorder, if you've never had that sort of turbulent relationship with food, it's really hard to understand how much it takes over your whole entire life, like your relationships, your, you know, your work, your, like everything, even, you know, the way you dress, everything in your life. Like I have had like a bad relationship with food, I would say pretty much my whole life. Like I remember when I was quite young, so my I grew up with like an abusive like maternal figure, and she would use food as a punishment, like restricting food as a punishment. So if I did something that would piss her off, she wouldn't make me dinner. And that started from when I was like a very young teenager. So I kind of learnt then, if I did something wrong, I don't make dinner. And it was so subconscious. I didn't consciously think, oh, okay, I didn't get a good enough grade, or I didn't get my work in on time, I'm not going to have dinner. It was so subconscious. And it was sometimes I wouldn't even notice it until I'd have a friend be like, oh, you've not eaten today. And I'd have to, again, intentionally sit back and look at my behaviour and be like, why do I think that? And like I'm sure you have as well. I went through therapy and spoke about that and spoke about that relationship. And I kind of sort of improved it and got better with it. And then I mean, you know about this because you're one of my close friends, but context for anyone else who doesn't know, I went for a really bad time on social media. It was like 2021, I think it was, wasn't it? 2021. I worked with a very, very big gym brand, big gym clothing brand. And it was just a very, very uncomfortable position I was in online. A lot of their fan base really just didn't like me as a disabled woman, didn't like what I looked like, and I just suffered abuse for a year to the point where I hated going on Instagram. I hated it. It became such like a distasteful place for me, and it really took me a while to get back to that page where I loved posting again. But I took a step back from the fitness industry. I loved that brand, took a step back from the fitness industry, moved to London, had the best year of my life. But because I went straight from that, and which was really quite traumatic, into having the best year of my life, I didn't realise what an impact that had on me. So I was like, moving to London, having the best year of my life, but wasn't really thinking about what I'd been through. I wasn't eating properly. My relationship with food had gone completely back into like, you know, back down the pan to where I was when I was like a teenager and in my like very, very early 20s. And I really had to like think about my relationship with food again and be like, what is the common denominator here? I was thinking about food and I thought, right, I need to try and like just have meals, schedule meals. And then I was stressing myself out thinking about what to eat. I would sometimes sit there for like 2 hours and be like, right, I could eat this. And I was overthinking everything so much. And I had like no idea until about like summer last year that it was connected to what I went through back in 2021. Had like no, and then I, you know, kind of like worked through it, or like began to work through that and realised that thousands of people on the internet telling you that your body's shit and you don't deserve to be in the fitness industry will make you have a bad relationship with your body and with your food. So
especially when you weren't protected during that whole time by anyone, like it was horrible to watch as an outsider as well.
That's the thing as well, because obviously like you know about it from me talking to you about it, but also so many people watched me go through that. And I think because it was so public, I felt such a need to just get back up and be like, I'm fine, because I thought I can't let those people who ruined my life know that they've ruined my life. But they really did. They really did ruin at least a year of my life. And it's really taken me a lot of work to get back to this position where I can go swimming, I can go to the gym, and like I can have some sort of good relationship with tiramisu. It's because I'm thinking tiramisu is like one of my like food joys now. Like, I love tiramisu, but it's like having those moments again where I'm like, I can have that joy with food. And like a part of that for me was having to really come to terms with the fact that I don't think I can be plant-based anymore. Such a hard decision to make. And obviously we've had like private conversations about this because you're my friend, but it's like, I felt such a pressure being plant-based. I was like, well, no, I'm plant-based now. I'm locked in. That's who I am. I spoke about it on social media. I've made posts about being plant-based. So like I have to be plant-based. And I went on holiday, I ate pescatarian, and realised I felt a lot better. So carried that through. But that guilt of realising I can't be plant-based anymore was so heavy.
But I bet that came more so from other people's perceptions of you rather than the decision that you just wanted to make for yourself as well, which is is so tough. And like, I have spoken about being plant-based online for many years, as well as being sober. It's all right. And I know I obviously mentioned like I'm an all or nothing person, but like, just because I'm plant-based, I'm not expecting everyone that follows me to follow suit. The reason why being plant-based works for me so much is because in the height of my eating disorder, I knew the amount of calories in a chicken breast. Right. I knew the amount of calories in cottage cheese. Yeah. Whereas now I'm eating foods that I never allowed myself to eat during my eating disorder, because it's mostly carbs, like, or carbs with a little bit of protein in, say it's chickpeas or whatever. I never had tofu or tempeh when I was struggling with an eating disorder, whereas now that works so well for me.
I didn't post about it because people were asking me about it, because I'd stopped posting about plant-based food and stuff, but I thought I need to not tell anyone until I work out this is the right decision for me, because I might do it for 3 months and then go, actually no, I want to be plant-based. So didn't tell anyone, or didn't show it online for about 6 months, and then someone asked me and I thought, you know what, I'm in a place, I'm going to do it now. And I'm glad I waited, because, well, first of all, I had so many people be supportive and say, I've been through a similar thing. And then I had so many people say, you do what's right for you. But you always get a handful of people. Yeah. And a handful of people be like, no, you should be ashamed of yourself. Like, there's no good reason for going back on your morals and, you know, stuff like that. And then you sit there and you think, you don't know. Because I didn't share with the context of what I've been through. I just said, I'm not plant-based anymore. Been really struggling with my health, and particularly my mental health. So it's just I've made. And I purposely left it vague because I thought, that's no one's business, but it is now. But it's just, you know, you sit there and you think, you don't know the context. And it's like, health is so individual. Like, and it's, I mean, with everything we've been talking about, it's so individual, like sobriety, alcohol, and the decisions you make around that, the decisions around food, it's all so individual that it's like, it's well and good to, you know, we can sit there, we can say, well, this is the optimum, you know, decision you would make, and this is overall, in brackets, what is healthy by science. But when it comes down to it, there is so much context and there is so much nuance to living a healthy lifestyle.
I completely agree. And I think it is hard, because if someone, all they think about is, say, if they're doing it for the environmental reasons or for the animals or something, if that's all they think about, they're going to come for you because that's what they think about day in, day out, not knowing your situation, not knowing what you've been through. But like, I'm not being funny, they won't be perfect in every aspect of their life. So if they aren't on paper perfect, they can't expect you to be either. And if anything, you're probably still reducing your meat and your dairy intake, or like you've probably lessened it a lot more than before you were plant-based. So they should be going for the carnivore diet, people that are only eating chicken breast for breakfast, lunch and dinner, because
that's a thing.
Do you know what I mean?
But, no, more than anything, I'm like, where is the fibre? Are you not struggling in the bathroom?
Do you have a tummy ache? It's so true.
And I'm going to say, what's going on, sir? Because
it's usually men, let's be honest.
Man,
But it's so true. And it's like, why aren't you coming for the people that are eating the meat every day? Instead, you're coming from someone who's enjoying tiramisu because it makes them happy. Do you know what I mean? So the internet is a wild old place, but I do just think that whatever path you're on, you do have to be a little bit selfish and work out what's best for you. Yeah.
And I think you could say that of everything, whether it's food, whether it's sobriety, like what it is. Like, it was all about, as we say, I think we've really worked out the good thing that us has been going through your behaviours and trying to connect your behaviour with, you know, your action, like your behaviour with how it makes you feel. And like really connect those dots and be intentional about the decisions that you're making.
And working out what is actually serving you.
You had a post last night and I thought it was brilliant. And do you know what it was? I saw it and, you know, I liked it. And then you go, I'm on the tube, I can't listen. So I saved it and I watched it properly this morning. And I thought it was brilliant. And I thought you were, first of all, congratulations. Because Steph is pregnant.
I'm someone's mum.
She's going to be someone's mum. Like, that's insane. When you told me. So I always had this joke. I didn't know whether Steph was in the joke or not, but I always call her and her boyfriend Lou mum and dad. Yeah. And I do it to like my other friends that are in couples as well. And I was doing it publicly at first, not knowing she was pregnant. And when you told me like a few weeks ago, and I remember being like, oh shit, I've been calling you mum and dad while you were pregnant. I
think you'd literally commented on something like the day or week before, being like, mum and dad, and I was like, she doesn't know.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And so I'm someone who I have no interest in having kids. Pregnancy very, very scares me, but I'm so, I think actually empowered might be the word, but with this sort of wave of women online who do want to become mums and they do want to have kids and they're going through pregnancy and they're being really honest about the experience. Because one of the reasons I'm honest about not wanting kids is because I think there is so much stigma around, you know, having children and not having children, whatever you decide to do. And so in this post where you spoke about how you've been struggling with the way your body is changing, throughout the pregnancy. And, you know, I think that will be so powerful to so many women, because I think we think of pregnancy, oh, you're glowing and, you know, it's this amazing time, which it is, but also like, it's a big thing you're going through.
Yeah. And you know what? We've spoken about having kids and not having kids many times prior to this, and I was actually told at 17 that the chances of me having children were really, really slim because of my eating disorder. So there was part of me that convinced myself I didn't want children because I can't have them. So it was easier for me to make the decision rather than
They're being taken away from
you. Than it being taken away from me. Exactly that. And so when we found out that we were pregnant, I've been in a very committed relationship for the last 6 years and I'm obsessed with my partner. But like when we found out, it was like a little miracle and a little blessing that we'd been given the chance. That we've had so many conversations about the fact that we might just have dogs and that might just be us. But knowing that there is going to be someone that's half me and half my boyfriend makes me so happy. But that doesn't take away from the last however many months of struggle that I've had since being pregnant. So about 6 weeks into the pregnancy, I started being violently sick multiple times of the day. And I thought it was called morning sickness because you're just sick in the morning. No, it should be called morning sickness because you feel like you are grieving any life you had before. Oh my God. There was one day I got rushed to hospital because I was sick 18 times before 12 p.m. And I when I first found out I was pregnant, it was, I don't want to give it away because I'm not saying how many months I am, but like it was at a time when loads of people were complaining about having children.
Yeah.
And I was like, does everyone hate their kids? Because I've just found out I'm about to have one. And I, as much as there's this wave of like mum social media speaking about the raw and real side of things, there can be quite a negative spin on it. So I never want it to come across like that. But I just went into the whole situation so naive. And I think I knew that I was going to grow a tummy, but I hadn't really processed that yet. And it's basically just, it's been this light in my life. This news has been a huge light, but it has shown up some shadows that I don't think I realised were still there.
Yeah.
And I spoke about in the post last night that I just felt like this fraud because my body was doing the most magical thing, but I was hating it and I was hating the changes and I was really struggling. And the only food I could eat was plain pasta. Some days I couldn't keep any food down other than half a bowl of plain pasta. I felt like all of the coping mechanisms that have got me through my eating disorder, whether that was seeing friends and family, getting outdoors, moving my body, eating nutritious food, drinking water, all of those coping mechanisms were completely taken away from me. And I was just left in this lifeless, energyless body, feeling sick, being sick, not being able to leave the house. And it really shone a light on a lot of darkness that I hadn't necessarily processed.
Yeah.
And one of my really good friends, Sasha, said, this baby has come to heal parts of me that I didn't know were still broken. And I genuinely believe that. But I'd be lying if I said it was easy and enjoyable. And like, when does the pregnancy glow start? Because I have not felt that. And I think there is some of it that can be quite glamorized. And obviously it should be celebrated. I think all babies are a miracle. And the chances of you getting pregnant per cycle are so slim. Like, it's such a beautiful time. But it's really hard. And like, someone commented on the post last night saying, all of these things that women go through are given cute little names like baby blues and things like that, when actually it's heavy shit. And a lot of the time you're suffering in silence because you're told not to tell anyone for the first 12 weeks until you've had a scan and you know you're definitely pregnant and it's safe. So you're dealing with this cocktail of emotions by yourself. Your partner you love dearly, but they're not going through the exact same thing as you. Like, every time I was sick, Lewis, bless him, would like stroke my back and make sure I was okay. But I'd look at him and be like, you did this to me. And his life had changed in terms of like the way he was thinking and showing up in the world had changed. But he could still go on a run when he wanted or take work calls when he wanted. His life hadn't physically changed then. So there was a part where like I was resenting his ease of living because I didn't have that. And it's so hard because you're so happy to get what you've always wanted, whilst resenting the very thing that's growing that miracle. So it's been a turbulent time, and I'm definitely grateful to the NHS and the therapy that they're providing through the mental health side of things, because it was actually Lewis that brought it up in a midwife appointment. I didn't realise I was sitting under this cloud of darkness. But yeah, I'm about to go through the most life-changing time of my life when the baby gets here, and I don't think I'd really realised that life-changing part would start so early on in pregnancy.
Yeah. I think, first of all, I just think you're amazing. I really do.
Thank
just on a
you.
personal level as a friend, I think the way you approach anything in life, I think you have such a, You do have a glow about you. You might not think it's not pregnancy
Charlotte
glow.
Tilbury foundation.
But you have a Steph glow.
Oh,
and I think
thank
that's
you.
because you just have such a light for life. And I can see how bubbly you are. I can see even just the kindness that you've given me, like in the years that we've been friends, even back when we didn't really know each other that well. We've met at a few events and stuff. You do come through this world with such a kindness. And I think like first of all, your baby is going to have an amazing mum and dad.
Oh, thank you.
But I think just that being honest about it is so, so important. Because there's things that I don't know much about babies or having kids or pregnancy, anything like that. I'm very, very naive. So I didn't realise you get morning sickness all day. It's all day sickness. And it's so true what you say about it being given cutesy little names. But do you think like it's given that to almost like play down what women go through? Because it is really, really hard.
Yeah, and I think I was so scared to talk about it because I just had this overwhelming fear that women who, I know fertility is such a touchy subject is probably the wrong word to say it, but it can be such a traumatic time for so many women who are desperate to be mums. And I never wanted to come across as if I was complaining about this situation, because I just didn't want it to be that. But so many people have validated my feelings and been like, I felt exactly the same. I went through exactly the same. And I was like, oh my God, okay, fine. I'm not alone. I've not had a unique experience in my whole entire life. Like everyone's gone through something similar, which is so reassuring. Yeah. And I think speaking about that, it took me a long time. Like we didn't announce the pregnancy for months because one, I wanted to be in this love bubble of our friends and family. And I think I share so much publicly online that I wanted to keep something back private for a little while before I started showing. But I think that also worked against me because I was allowed to be in denial for longer, whereas I wasn't actually processing anything. But now I have spoken about it, I feel this relief and this lightness because I've had my experience validated by women that have gone through the same. And I'll be completely honest, there was times when I was like feeling so poorly and down in myself that I was, am I even going to connect with this baby? Because right now, how it's making me feel like I'm resenting this whole experience. Yeah. And the mix of feeling so overwhelmingly happy and loved whilst feeling fear, whilst feeling guilt for feeling fear, it's so much to process. And it's such a beautiful time, but I just don't think it is spoken about enough in safe environments. So it's just been really nice to have those conversations. And like I said earlier in the podcast, like I'm so grateful for the online community that I have because my DMs are such a safe place and the comments that I receive have helped me more than anyone will ever know, and being able to give that back to them in some way. Like I try and reply to every comment and DM, which is time consuming, but I'm just so grateful for people taking the time to message me that like even if it's like reacting with a love heart or taking the time to respond is something that I'm always going to try and make time to do.
Yeah, I think just knowing for women to know that those complicated feelings can exist together. Like you don't have to be all joy and all sunshine and all roses. Yeah. And then that doesn't equally mean that when you're having a bad day that, oh, you know, she's ungrateful for the pregnancy and, you know, she's having, you know, she, you know, all of these like negative more emotions. It's like women are allowed to have complicated feelings. Women are allowed to have contradicting feelings because women are people, you know? And it's like navigating life is hard. Navigating growing a life, I imagine, is really fucking hard. Yeah. So, you know, you're allowed to exist in all of that.
Thank you.
I want to ask you one final question.
Yeah.
How are you chasing joy this week?
Oh, how am I chasing joy? In a few ways. This one's really boring, but I love nothing weekends where I can just like reconsolidate my life and do things like life admin, like laundry and hoovering and even wrapping Christmas presents and feeling like I'm getting ahead. So I've got a Saturday of doing absolutely fuck all, and I cannot wait to just do all of those things.
Do you know what is so funny?
What?
You have the podcast hasn't gone out yet, so you wouldn't know this. Michelle said the exact same thing last week.
No, stop it. Oh my God, I literally cannot wait. And then I am actually going to see Wicked for the second time in cinema. Also love that there's signs now saying no singing in the theatre, which we love, because there's nothing worse than trying to listen to Cynthia Erivo and there's fucking Pauline from down the road.
In the background having a
moment. So one of my favourite things to do is an everyman cinema where you can order a burger to your seat and you watch the movie whilst munching on a burger and sweet potato fries.
The only time I'm early to a cinema or even just on time before the trailers is when it's an everyman, because I'm like, I'm going to get there early. I want my burgers and my fries.
100%. It's the only way. So that's how I'm chasing joy.
Lovely. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and opening up for Steph. I honestly really, really appreciate it. Absolutely love having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.